You think you know the people around you. You trust their praise. You believe their encouragement is sincere. But human nature is rarely that simple. Beneath compliments, a quieter emotion often hides, not always hatred, but tension, comparison, a silent question whispered inside their minds. Why them, and not me? Success changes the room before you even speak. Confidence shifts the air. Ambition makes others measure themselves without meaning to. Sometimes they cheer for you, sometimes they admire you, and sometimes they smile, while privately wrestling with their own reflection. People rarely dislike your victories. They dislike how your victories make them feel about themselves. This is not pessimism. This is psychology, ego, status, identity. They live under the surface like quiet currents, shaping every interaction. You will meet people who love your growth. You will meet people who pretend to love it. And you will meet people who quietly hope you slow down so they can breathe again. Not because they're evil, not because humanity is doomed, but because self-worth is fragile, and your progress forces others to confront their own. So learn to read the room beyond the smiles, not to become cruel, not to shut yourself away, but to understand the game everyone is already playing, consciously or not. Power is not just force, it is awareness. Influence is not only earned, it is observed, protected, and defended. And the people who navigate life the best are not the ones who demand love. They are the ones who recognize truth beneath the surface. If you rise, some will cheer, some will follow, and some will quietly test your confidence. Your job is not to fear this. Your job is to see it, to remain grounded, to sharpen your awareness instead of hardening your heart. Welcome to the psychology of ambition, envy, and silent judgment. Let's begin. You walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts. Eyes glance, smiles appear, voices warm as if you are genuinely welcomed. It feels pleasant, reassuring, almost safe. But hidden beneath that surface is a truth most never acknowledge. People rarely react to you. They react to what you represent to them. Your presence is never neutral. It either comforts, threatens, inspires, or reminds. You do not just enter a room, you enter someone's self-image, and self-image is fragile. When you stand confident, someone silently questions their own confidence. When you appear focused, someone feels their procrastination. When you carry ambition, someone sees where they stalled. And so smiles form, not always from joy, but from instinct, from habit, from the desire to appear composed, to seem unbothered. No one wants to reveal insecurity. So admiration can appear right beside envy. Respect can hide beside discomfort. People don't dislike your success itself. They dislike feeling less by comparison. Not because they hate you, but because they protect their ego. Humans are social competitors wrapped in polite behavior. We measure ourselves constantly, even when we don't admit it. You become a mirror, a reminder, a symbol of effort, growth, or courage someone hasn't expressed yet. And that reflection can sting. So they laugh with you, they nod, they speak kindly, and yet a quiet battle happens in the mind. Am I doing enough? Why are they moving forward and I'm not? Do they deserve it more than me? No one says it out loud, not even to themselves. Comparison whispers where language cannot. And in those small internal shifts, subtle tension grows, not open hostility, not declared resentment, just a shadow emotion we rarely name, a silent resistance that smiles politely, a performance of support with a thin layer of unease beneath it. It is not villainy, it is human, because when one rises, others feel movement in themselves. Sometimes they feel inspired, sometimes they feel inferior, often they feel both. And this dual feeling, admiration tied to insecurity, is the beginning of quiet conflict. Not visible, not loud, but real. Understanding this does not make you cold, it makes you aware. Awareness gives you balance, and balance is strength. Walk into every room with warmth, but also with open eyes. Not suspicious, just awake. You do not need to boast to trigger emotions in others. Sometimes simply existing in your strength creates tension. Achievement casts a long shadow, even when unintentional. Not because others are weak, but because comparison is automatic. Every human mind measures, every ego checks its own temperature when someone else rises. Success is not just something you have, it is something others feel. And feelings do not always follow reason. They follow instinct, they follow pride. They follow the quiet voice that whispers, "Should I be doing more?" That whisper can motivate some, but it can unsettle many, because effort is heavy, discipline is demanding, ambition has a price. Your growth reminds others of that cost, and not everyone is ready to pay it. So they protect themselves by building stories that explain your progress in ways that soothe their discomfort. Maybe they got lucky, maybe they had help, maybe it's not that impressive anyway. These thoughts are not always malicious. Sometimes they are self-defense, a psychological bandage over the sting of comparison. We all want to feel like we matter. We all want worth. And when your achievement feels like evidence against theirs, defense mechanisms activate. Some people cheer for you and let it push them forward. Others cheer for you only on the outside, while quietly wrestling inside. It is not betrayal. It is not hatred. It is human insecurity navigating social space. And insecurity rarely speaks its name. It hides under politeness. It hides behind humor. It hides in silence, but it still acts. It influences tone. It shapes conversations. It colors the atmosphere around you. Not dramatically at first, just faintly. Like a subtle shift in temperature you can't explain, but you feel. The higher you climb, the more sensitive you must become to these invisible currents. Not so you become suspicious, but so you remain prepared. Greatness is not only about what you build, it is about learning to move gracefully through the reactions your progress creates in others. Awareness is not paranoia. Awareness is maturity, and maturity is what allows you to rise without igniting unnecessary fires. You can't control how others feel about your growth, but you can control how you understand it and how you respond to it. Ambition is powerful energy. It shifts how people perceive you, even when you never speak of it. Those who drift through life notice when someone moves with intention. Your focus becomes a silent signal. Your standards become a quiet challenge, not through arrogance, simply through direction. And direction makes the aimless uncomfortable. Ambition is like a light in a dim room. It doesn't insult anyone. It simply illuminates things they forgot they weren't doing. People don't resent your goals. They resent what your goals make them question inside themselves. Ambition exposes passivity without meaning to. It highlights complacency simply by existing. You don't have to say a word. Your path speaks for you. Some admire it and try to follow, but some feel threatened by the pace, the discipline, the hunger, and threatened egos rarely confess their discomfort. They pretend to be neutral. They joke about your seriousness. They call you too intense or obsessed to protect their own pride. They may frame your ambition as arrogance so they don't have to confront their hesitation. They do not fear your success. They fear their stagnation. When you dream loudly, you force others to face the silence in their own ambitions. And people defend comfort before they defend truth. Ambition is contagious, but so is resistance to it. Not everyone wants to move. Not everyone wants to see further. Not everyone wants to break their own limits. Progress demands self-honesty, and honesty can sting. So instead of rising, some choose rationalizing. They say you're lucky instead of disciplined. They say you're unrealistic instead of visionary. They say you're changing too fast, when really they're afraid of staying the same. Your evolution puts pressure on their narrative, and narratives are powerful shields. The moment your life challenges their story, they protect the story instead of evolving. Not because they dislike you, but because growth requires discomfort, and not everyone is ready to meet themselves. Your ambition is not the enemy. Their avoidance is, so do not shrink to make others comfortable. Do not dim to protect fragile pride. Ambition is not aggression, it is direction. And direction will always disturb those still sitting at the crossroads. Walk your path anyway. Those who are meant to rise will rise with you. The rest will watch, quietly challenged, quietly unsettled, but always aware you kept moving. Every social circle has invisible rules, unspoken hierarchies, delicate balances of confidence, competence, and status. When you rise, those balances shift. Even if you never try to dominate, your growth changes the equation. And people notice power before you realize you have it. Not just power over others, power over yourself, self-control, discipline, clarity, direction. These qualities command attention without raising your voice. They do not need to threaten. They simply exist, and people adjust around them. Respect forms, sometimes reluctantly. Curiosity forms, sometimes mixed with unease. Because someone who guides their own life cannot be easily influenced. And that unsettles those who rely on control through approval, social pressure, or hierarchy. You stop needing validation. You stop bending to fit expectations. And suddenly, the roles change. Some will admire your strength. Some will quietly resent it. because strength means boundaries, confidence means presence, and presence means you are no longer someone who blends in. You become someone who must be acknowledged. A person who holds themselves firmly forces others to choose how to stand beside them. Do they rise with you? Do they resist you? Or do they quietly step back, unsure how to match your momentum? Not everyone fears physical power. Many fear psychological independence. People feel safer when they understand your place in the social structure. When you move beyond that structure, they do not know where to place you. Not above them, not beneath them, separate. And separation demands reassessment. That reassessment can feel like threat, not because you attack, but because you cannot be managed. A strong presence shifts the social gravity of a room. Silence becomes power. Stillness becomes confidence. You no longer chase acceptance, it arrives or it doesn't, and either way you continue. That unsettles fragile egos. Respect rises in some, suspicion rises in others. Not all fear is hostile. Sometimes it is simply awe. Sometimes it is uncertainty. Sometimes it is the discomfort of realizing someone else has chosen themselves, and that choice is working. Power is not about control. It is about self-mastery, and people react to that mastery long before you speak it, claim it, or even fully understand it yourself. Remain steady, remain humble, but do not shrink. Your strength draws reactions, not because you threaten the world, but because you refuse to be threatened by it. The moment you grow, something shifts around you, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, subtly, like the temperature changing before a storm. People notice when your energy rises. They notice when your standards rise. They notice when your results begin to reflect who you are becoming. And they react, even if they pretend they don't. Some cheer, some ignore, some suddenly grow colder without reason, because growth is motion, and motion creates tension in those who stand still. Every step forward you take can feel like a step away to someone else, not because you rejected them, but because you refused to remain where they expected you to stay. People do not lose comfort when you fail. They lose comfort when you outgrow the version of you they were comfortable with. It disrupts the story in their head. It forces them to choose between evolving or remaining behind. Not everyone wants that choice. So instead, they sometimes choose distance, disguised as criticism. You changed. You're different now. You think you're better. They are not describing you. They are describing their discomfort. What they really mean is, you no longer fit inside the limits I placed on you. But here is the truth they won't admit. If you stayed the same, they would quietly lose respect for you. People resent stagnation in others just as much as they resent growth. They just resent growth, louder. Your progress challenges them to confront their own stagnation. Your ambition forces them to choose ambition or excuses. And excuses defend themselves aggressively when confronted with proof that change is possible. So they distance themselves, they rationalize, they project. Sometimes, they subtly sabotage, not always out of hatred, often out of fear. Fear of being left behind, fear of not being enough, fear of losing their role in your life as you become more. But remember this, those who truly want to grow will never be threatened by your evolution. They will be inspired. They will match your pace or carve their own path beside you. The rest were simply walking near you, not with you. Let them drift. The path upward always thins the crowd, and that is not tragedy. That is natural selection of the soul. Continue moving. Growth does not ask permission, and neither should you. At some point in your journey, you realize something essential. You do not grow to impress others. You do not rise to prove them wrong. You rise because you refuse to betray your potential. And in that rise, you begin to see people clearly, not cynically, not bitterly, just clearly. You stop expecting universal support. You stop assuming applause means loyalty. You stop believing approval equals alignment. And yet, you do not close your heart. You simply open your eyes. Awareness becomes your strength, not suspicion. Discernment becomes your shield, not hostility. You learn that people are complex. They can admire you and envy you in the same breath. They can encourage you and compete with you silently. They can love you and still fear being outgrown by you. This is not a flaw. It is the psychology of identity, self-worth, belonging, and pride. Once you understand this, you do not resent it. You simply navigate it. You do not chase validation. You command respect by being who you are. You do not force loyalty. You recognize it by observing action, not listening to promises. You do not fear envy. You see it, manage it, and rise above it. Power is not harshness. Power is emotional intelligence sharpened by experience, and those who master both confidence and awareness become unshakable. You learn when to trust deeply. You learn when to stand at arm's length. You learn when silence is smarter than explanation. You learn that your growth is not a threat to the right people, and you learn that distance is not conflict. Sometimes it is protection, sometimes evolution. Not everyone is meant to walk the whole path with you. Some were lessons, some were mirrors, some were seasonal companions, and a rare few, a precious few, will stand beside you without fear, without envy, without insecurity. These are the ones who grow with you, not against you. These are the ones worth trusting. Knowing the difference is power, and using that knowledge with grace is mastery. Move forward without arrogance. Move forward without shrinking. Walk with clarity, not fear. Walk with strength, not bitterness. Your greatness does not need to be loud, only consistent. And as you rise, remember, your awareness protects you, your growth honors you, and your ability to stay human while becoming powerful is what makes you truly unstoppable. You have now seen what lies beneath polite smiles and soft words. Not hatred, but human nature. Not cruelty, but ego, comparison, identity, and pride. Success casts light, and light always reveals shadow. When you grow, some will cheer, some will chase you, and some will quietly fall away because your evolution demands theirs. Do not resent them. Do not shrink for them. Just continue becoming who you were meant to be. Awareness is not negativity. It is protection. It is precision. It is the calm strength to move forward without illusions. Rise with open eyes, steady heart, and grounded purpose. Because the path is not about proving anyone wrong. It is about proving yourself right. If this message opened your eyes or strengthened your mindset, then like this video, subscribe, and join us here on Psychology Insights. Stay sharp, stay aware, and keep rising.